because one fulfill some timetable versus having slight delay for purpose of the playing field and ending up with a free and fair election. As I said before, the right to have the election by August at the latest is a right contained in Section 158 of the Constitution. It is not a right which is in the Bill of Rights. The right to free and fair election, on the other hand, is a right contained in Section 67 of the Constitution, and there is a right that is in the Bill of Rights. Where you have a clash of two rights, one in the Bill of Rights, one outside the Bill of Rights, it is the rights in the Bill of Rights that prevails. So the right to free and fair election prevails. So we realized that because the delimitation took long and the people were rushing for time, our challenge will inevitably lead to a postponement or to a deferment, but a reasonable deferment. That is what we envisaged. We were not alone. We now have known that the CCC, through the amicus curiae, actually wanted a postponement of the election by 1 month, but after which we will use the same limitation report that we rejected. So the issue is Zimbabwe is regarded as a pariah state throughout the world. So many things are tied to free and fair elections. So the question is, would you rather have free and fair elections with a slight delay, or would you rather have free and fair elections but held on time? In our respectful view, having done a cost-benefit analysis, we thought that it is better to even the playing field, because if
sorry, Lynette. Sorry, Senator. You're in the wrong space. We're waiting for you, General Chat. Senator, we're waiting for you, General Chat. You're on the wrong space.
Oh, is that so?
Senator, sorry,
okay, I just finished this point. My apologies, I can just this point. So there was a cost-benefit analysis that we did, and we thought that it was in the best interest of Zimbabwe that we have free and fair elections. That is our thought process.
Okay. Thank you very much. Oh my goodness, there's that feedback again. So the senator here is saying that whenever there's a clash between rights and the Bill of Rights, what actually then is given priority is the Bill of Rights. And I want to ask this question to Solomon, maybe if you can help us with that. Because initially you were complaining about ZEC just wanting to tick the boxes. Here, President Mwonzora says, we just don't want to get into an election for the sake of it, for us to fulfill a timetable. He wants to go into an election and ensure that it's a level playing field, free and fair elections. What is your response to that?
Okay, thank you, Lynette, for that question. My own personal, when I look at what we get, what is provided for in the Constitution, and what the situation that is obtaining on the ground, is that can we breach all the sections of the Constitution? Do we need to break that timetable? And I think Senator Mwonzora was also part of that. He was the co-chair of the COPAC that drafted the Constitution. They went around, consulted people, and people said, if this is what people said we can go to elections after so many years. There was a reason why citizens decided to put a cap in terms of the number of years without putting an exception on that. So there is no exception in that. So we are still fulfilling the same Constitution. We are here to fulfill the Constitution. We need to go to elections. It is also within the political parties' powers to then make sure that at every time when ZEC is undertaking these activities, it complies with the Constitution. So from day one, when ZEC failed to use the census, when ZEC did not have a census report and they started this process, political parties should have started lobbying, political parties should have started engaging, political parties should have started to raise the pressure on the Electoral Commission to ensure that from day one they do the right thing. So if we then wait for the last minute like this, it looks like we no longer want an election for the sake of us just not wanting the election, because people have moved with this process from the day that a statutory instrument was amalgamated by ZEC in the Gazette to say we're going to start the process of delimitation. Someone was supposed to raise a red flag and say, where is the census reports? And then we move, where is the voters roll? Where is this? Where is that? So that at least when we then get to this point, it's not like we are simply coming out and saying we simply don't want an election. It is coming with a track record of what have been our demands from the beginning up to the point where we are now. So it is important that, yeah, I agree with him, but should we also breach the provision that says we should go to election 5 years because we want to fulfill another provision? And then what happens to the question that I have asked earlier on? What happens to local authorities, to whatever, to parliament, to the presidential term, to the appointments, and so on and so on? So it is important that we consider all that without necessarily looking at only one function of the Constitution, but we look at all the functions of the Constitution.
Thank you very much for that, Solomon. Unfortunately, Senator Mwonzora has left, but let's have finance come through.
No, this is, sorry, Lynette, this is just a side comment. You see what just happened now, Tatina Senator Mwonzora, isn't it? And while we are by mistake, whatever the case is, I would have wanted a situation where all Zimbabweans, this is where we are polarized. This is just a comment. We are very, very polarized. I would have wanted everyone else to come to this space, Tongo Sangana, and as Zimbabweans, like what Kenyans do. You see their spaces with 600-700 people. Elections, it's because Kabatana. But anyway, it's a side comment. Just going quickly, issue
about 3 weeks ago granted me a right of direct access to come to court, and in granting me that right of access, they were already saying that they had the jurisdiction to hear them. I had the right to appear before them, and that I had a strong case on the merits. They invited me and the MDC to come and argue our case on the merits before the Constitutional Court. And of course, we were prepared to argue about our case, to argue about the delimitation irregularities that were there. But when we got into the Constitutional Court, the judges, especially the chief justice, started querying about my local standing, my right to appear in court, and querying about who I was representing, and whether I could validly represent members of the MDC, and how many members were those, and if I could represent potential candidates of the MP of the MDC, how many those people were. Something that has been unheard of in the history of this country. Remember, in 2018, a fellow called Jealous Mawarire went and appeared before the same constitutional court, the Supreme Court, arguing that his rights had been affected and that we should go for Zimbabwe should go for elections. He was not a representative of any political party. He was not even president of the political party. He was not a holder of a public position, and he had nothing to do with the constitution. To the contrary, I am leader of my political party. I am a presidential candidate, and I am interested, of course, in forming a government should I win the presidency. And in forming this government, I need to have members of parliament. I am an author of a co-author of this constitution that we are using. But the judges took a long time harassing lawyers about whether I had locus standi or not. After we had prevailed in showing that we had a direct interest in this matter and that we were squarely and regularly within the court, they asked for a recess of 20 minutes. They ended up taking 1 hour, 20 minutes, as if they were consulting someone. When they came back, their argument, which appears in their judgment, is that we approached the court saying that the delimitation report was invalid, and should have confined ourselves to saying the delimitation report was invalid. And they said I should not have gone further to say, because of invalidity of the voters of the delimitation report, my rights to free and fair election were affected. They then said I should have either gone to say my rights to free and fair elections are affected, full stop, and ended there, or I have gone to say the delimitation report is invalid and ended there. Now, this is very, very interesting because the argument that I was making before the courts is that because the delimitation report was invalid because there were certain information that is not there in the delimitation report that would inform a presidential candidate or a leader of his party. Our rights to free and fair elections were infringed. So the Constitutional Court then said, we decline jurisdiction, we decline to exercise our power to hear you on the merits, we are dismissing your application. Basically, what they were saying is that we should leave the Constitutional Court and go to another court, in this case, the High Court. What the Constitutional Court was doing there was to avoid work. I said it was a political decision immediately after I left the Constitutional Court, because this is the first time that I have heard such strange reasoning from the Constitutional Court. It was very suspicious in the courts, long periods of absence by the judges, coming and harassing our lawyers on something that they never went to rule on. And when they were convinced by my lawyers, or when they found that trading into unreasonableness, they then came and said, no, you have made an application saying that the delimitation is invalid, but don't go on to say that your rights to free and fair elections are infringed. So definitely it was a political argument. The judges were playing for time, hoping that they delay they delay me so that by me going to the High Court, perchance the president would make a proclamation in the meantime. And when the president makes a proclamation, then the challenges cannot be done. Or the Constitutional Court will find other grounds. That is a ground, sorry, to not to entertain me. There was determination on the part of the court not to hear this case on its merits. And yet they are the ones who invited me to make my presentations on merits. So that is why I said it was a political judgment, completely outrageous.
Thank you for that submission, Senator. I think it's the reasons you are given for alleging a political basis. I can see where you're coming from, but my understanding is from what I could see sometimes in the Constitutional Court, judges do take leave. But I suppose for a person like myself and many others who are not lawyers, I'm quite interested in understanding the argument that they were making to say, as a presidential candidate, you didn't have locus standi because you were not directly affected. But when I look at your submission here on paragraph 14.1, you do state that you are also acting in your own interest and have direct personal interest in the present application. Didn't that have some weight against that argument from them, or how did they dismiss that?
Well, first of all, before I become a presidential candidate, I am a Zimbabwean, entitled and I am entitled to free and fair election in my country. That's number one. Number two, being a presidential candidate, being a president of a party, my intention is to form a government, and I can only do that if I have members of parliament. Therefore, I have a direct interest in the election of my members. It stands to reason. But also remember, I am also a voter. I vote in the local government elections. I vote in the parliamentary elections as well as a voter. So the reasoning by the judges was very, very difficult to understand. After all, even when you're a presidential candidate, it's not as if a presidential candidate in Zimbabwe has some central place where they stand and propagate their messages. They plot their rallies. You are going to Gokwe, from Gokwe you go to Bikita, from Bikita to Chimedzi. There must be some reason why you choose that path. And one of the reasons is the concentration of the population of Zimbabweans. And therefore, I am interested in the correct delimitation report. Remember, this delimitation report only looked at the adult population as at the 30th of May 2022. In other words, it did not consider people who were 17 years last year, who are now of voting age. So as a presidential candidate, I need to know those people. I need to know where they are concentrated. I need to know where I must go and encourage voter education or voter registration. That information was simply not there. As a presidential candidate or as a leader of his party, I know that the delimitation report is going to affect two elections: the election in 2023, the elections in 2028. Therefore, I am interested in the number of people who are 13 years this year, because in 2028, they will be 18 years. That information simply was not there. So I was directly affected in my planning. I was directly affected because there was information asymmetry. All this was argued, and the judges simply didn't seem to take it. But when they made their judgment, they ruled against themselves. They admitted that I had just studied all of a sudden. And we spent close to 2 hours arguing on that point. they then they then abandoned that point and came with another reason, which is to say, if you argue that the limitation report is invalid, you must end there. You must not say that rights to free and fair elections are infringed. In other words, they wanted to exonerate the breach of constitutional rights. And I found that to be very, very strange indeed.
Thank you, Senator. I'll give way to others to ask questions as well.
Thank you, Senator. For those who want to ask the Senator questions, please strictly short questions, because the Senator said is only here for exactly an hour, nothing more. So, Senator, I'm assuming, seeing that you came to us at was it 8:30? Was it 8:30? No, is it 8:30, guys?
It's 7:30.
7:30. So we're with you until 8:30, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Thank you, Senator. Right. Please go ahead, Finals.
I don't know. We're getting a bit of feedback, Sisi Shumi. I think the senator's mic is on when people are asking questions. Sorry. Okay.
Senator, when you finish, can switch off your mic.
Oh, perfect. He's done it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Senator, for coming through. I followed you to this platform. Thanks, Sisi Shumi. My question to you is going to be straightforward and pretty much simple. I think I've raised this question before in terms of, you seem to be a lone wolf in this application on the delimitation report. Why do you think other parties are not interested in pursuing the same cause that you are pursuing? I'm not saying you can talk on their behalf, but what makes you a lone wolf in this application? Are you the only aggrieved party in this? Is everyone else ahead with the delimitation report? I'm done, Senator. That was my question, please.
I think we've lost the Senator. Senator, did you hear the question?
Sorry, I did not hear the question.
The question. Okay, go ahead, Finals.
Okay, perfect. Senator, I've raised this question before, that you seem to be a lone wolf in this court application. Other political parties are observing from the peripheries. They're just condemning it from the peripheries without actually joining hands with you. Okay. I think the Senator might. Okay, yeah, I will have to come out.
Senator, you know what you should do? Keep your mic off until the time you are responding to the question. It might help.
Okay, Sisi Shumi, just reiterate what I said, please, because you said you can't hear me specifically.
He's asking, Kuti, you seem to be a lone wolf in this application. Senator?
So he is saying...
You seem to be a lone wolf in this application.
Lone wolf.
Lone wolf. You seem to be on your own.
Okay, all right. You want me to respond to that?
Okay, Senator, can you hear me now so that I can just qualify the question, please? Can you hear me?
Okay. It seems that I'm not hearing you, but let me just answer to Finals. Thank you very much for that observation, Finals. I am not a lone wolf. The whole of Zimbabwe, and by the whole of Zimbabwe, I'm talking about the right-thinking Zimbabweans. Those Zimbabweans who are actuated by malice, those Zimbabweans who are not actuated by jealousy. The whole of Zimbabwe were with me in this application across the political divide. But of course, in this battle, we were surprised when the Triple C brought Jeremiah Bamu as amicus, and also Terry Mafukidze to be the advocate of Jeremiah Bamu. And what was interesting is that what was very clear is that they wanted to thwart the application. They were arguing that my prayer should not be given, it should be substituted by their prayer, which is summarized as follows: that although the limitation report is valid or could be invalid, it must nevertheless be used in the election. They were also arguing that they wanted the government or ZEC to give them, to extend the election by 1 month, so that they would get the 6 months and so on. Very, very strange reasoning indeed. But the intention was to thwart the application. They were siding with ZEC, they were siding with the government. And so, as regards political leaders in parliament, yes, one would say I'm a lone wolf because two of the leaders represented in parliament were on one side, is Emerson Mnangagwa of PF and Nelson Chamisa of Triple C. They were basically on one side. And that side can be summarized as follows: let's go to election whether or not we have a valid delimitation report, whether or not there is information asymmetry on the part of Zimbabweans, whether or not the outcome will patently be unfree and fair. Let's just go to elections. And we do not agree to that. And we have not given up as the MDC, and as invited by the Constitutional Court. We have proceeded to prepare our papers and will be launching our application in the High Court, challenging this delimitation report, because the law allows us to. We are not going to give up. Here is a chance that Zimbabwe will get its act right. That Zimbabwe will reject an election that is patently manipulated at the very beginning. And we will go down fighting if we go down. But we will not give up. We are keeping the pressure on. We have perfected our application. We have found some more grounds to file before the High Court. So we are proceeding to file our application before the High Court, and we will not give up. No amount of mudslinging, no amount of vilification, no amount of propaganda will dissuade us. And I dare say, no amount of propaganda, no amount of misinformation can defeat an idea whose hour is come. The hour to challenge what is patently unfair in our country has come. There are people, there are politicians in this country who are so impatient, and they just want an election, whatever the quality of that election. They don't care. They just want an election to happen, as if the opposition in this country has ever won an unfree and unfair election. So we are proceeding with challenging in the High Court.
Sorry, Senator, I was not on this space because my phone had rung as you came on this space. I don't know if this question has been asked. How did it come about that you ended up in the in Concord instead of filing in the High Court in the first place?
Because we realized that this was a very, very important case, and it involved challenging a delimitation that was going to be used for purposes of a general election, which included, which was harmonized in nature. It would include the election of president, members of parliament, and of course, councillors. And it was a matter of such national and international importance that it needed to be dealt with by the highest court of the land, and to weren't prepared to argue the substantive case. But it is obvious that people noticed that the substantive case was strong. The merits was so strong and impeccable. And they started resorting to these technicalities, trying to discourage us. That is why they were very careful not to dismiss this case on merits. They were also very careful not to allow us to debate this case on merit. It looks like they did not want the embarrassment of an electoral body that patently breaches the law. Of course, what is so obvious is that this was with the help of the state.
Thank you, Senator. Smarters, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, of course, yes.
After Smarters, we go to, sorry, Finals, I'll come back to you. Let's do those that have not asked questions because we don't have much time with the Senator. We go to Smarters, then we go to Lions Den, then we go to Bashona, then we come to you, Finals. Thanks.
Thank you, Shumi, and thanks so much, Senator, for coming through. My first question to you, Senator, is on the time frame or the timelines, the amount of time it took, the Constitutional Court to realize that you did not have the locus standi. I think it was close to 30 days. What do you think was why it took them so long, or why it took them close to 30 days for them to say that? Then my second question quickly would be on the relief that you were seeking. I think the third, which is number 3, where you were asking the ConCourt to, right, let me just read the relief. So you were asking the ConCourt for the second respondent not to proclaim the dates of general elections before the First Amendment submits a report. On this item, I'm not seeing any timeline. So what timeframes are we looking at in terms of that delay? Were you seeking the Constitutional Court to come up, with some timelines for you to say, hey, they can delay by up to a period of a month, 2 months, 6 months, before we have that proclamation and the declaration? Then my last question would be, again, on the issue of locus standi. So if the Constitutional Court felt that you did not have the locus standi, did you get the full judgment, which points maybe to someone who is suitable or someone who has that locus standi to approach the ConCourt? Did they suggest to say if maybe it was an MP or a councillor approaching them, then that they would have that locus standi? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Let me start with the very last question. Although the judges harassed us on the question of locus standi, they in fact found that had locus standi. That is why in their final judgment, they did not say, Mr. Mwonzora, you don't have locus standi. They said you have brought a 2-in-1 application. In other words, you have challenged that the limitation report is invalid. You shouldn't go as far as to say that it breaches constitutional rights. The question that I have locus standi is obvious. If a person like me has no locus standi, who can ever have locus standi? One, I am a presidential candidate, meaning that I'm interested in forming a government. I can form government with MPs. And the election touching on MPs is patently free and unfair. There is certain information that my party doesn't have, which Deep State or ZANU-PF or for that matter, CCC does have, but which Zimbabweans, all other Zimbabweans don't have. So we are groping in the dark. So the question that I had locus standi is now beyond doubt. They admitted me into the court in the application for direct access because they knew that had locus standi. The issue of locus standi was argued and concluded in the direct access case. And it was informed a bulk of the time that the judges were unnecessarily badgering my lawyers, and yet they didn't make a finding that I did not have locus standi. All they said is that you should not say your rights to free and fair elections are infringed. You should simply say the delegation report is invalid and end that. Regarding relief, we are seeking relief in three parts. The first one is that there must be a declaration of invalidity on the delimitation report. The second one is that the ZEC must be ordered to redo. Then the third one is that the president must only make proclamation of the dates upon receipt of a fresh and correct delimitation report. It was the most sensible relief to seek, because if it was found invalid, obviously the body that is mandated constitutionally to do the delimitation must do the delimitation, and that is ZEC. So out of respect of ZEC's constitutional mandate, we then say, ZEC, redo your report. We also had respect of the constitutional mandate of the president to proclaim election dates, but he doesn't proclaim from the air. He proclaims after receiving a valid delimitation. What that would have meant is that with the declaration of invalidity, there was no delimitation. There was no basis of proclamation, as it were. And, we were looking at a period like 6 months. Why 6 months? 6 months because this was the period that is took to do delimitation. And ipso facto, we thought that when asked to read, they may require the same time. But we did not adjust the timelines because we envisaged a situation where the judges were going to determine whether the delimitation report was valid or invalid in the first place. Once they had found that it was invalid, the Constitutional Court was allowed to say to Zimbabwe Election Commission, how much time do you require to rectify your report? And we couldn't suggest that for ZEC in our draft order. And it was then up to ZEC to say we require 1 month, we require 2 months, we require 6 months, we require a year. That was going to be up to ZEC. It was not up to us. Different from what the CCC said. The CCC said they wanted an additional month. And aparegani botaura nishona. CCC vada 1 month. Anditi mukona manje. 1 month yekuti my elections aitwe postponed. Isusu tachimboti let them be deferred in order to do the proper delimitation. So zvavakaita zvakafanana nemunhu anoonekwa achidya kambwanana, wonzi wadya imbwa, woti aiwa handina kudya imbwa ndadya kambwanana. Imbwa, they are as guilty as we were in asking for a deferment. But they asked for a smaller unreasoned deferment is because of their own lack of wisdom. But they asked for a deferment nonetheless. And they hired a proxy to do that. A proxy who went on to hire another person, flew him all the way from South Africa to come and argue for a postponement of election by 1 month, which postponement would not have made sense at all. And why did the judges take time to find that, to argue about locus standi? I've already corrected you that they did not find that I did not have locus standi. And I don't blame most of you, because if you listen to the proceedings, you would have been pardoned to think that that is where they were going to base their ruling on. They just were harassing the lawyers. They went on to rule that yes, I could appear before them, but they are declining exercising their jurisdiction. They then simply said they did not have, they didn't want to exercise their jurisdiction. They didn't say I did not have locus. They allowed Jealous Mawarire, who was in a worse position than I was. Jealous Mawarire was not member, a member of any organ of his party. He was not even, it was not even clear whether he was a hired gun or a member of it. He was not an official of his party. He was representing no one. He came as a citizen of Zimbabwe. Now, I am a citizen of Zimbabwe representing my political party. I think there is unfairness. I see as a constitution writer that the constitution that we wrote is being abrogated left, right, center. As a responsible citizen, I have a positive duty to act, and I exercise that duty to act.
Thank you, Senator. Shall we go to who was next? Was it Lions Den?
Yes, it was me, Shumi. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Okay, Senator, thank you very much for coming. No wasting time. I was listening on your presentation, and my question is around what you actually have said earlier on. You said it was a political decision, kind of, that your perception. And with that now being said, out of 10, how confident are you to say them judges whom we are going to go to the High Court again, whom we are accusing of making political decisions, how are you going to go to the same people again? What stops them from making another political decision? And can you explain to me the technicalities? Because it seems like a lot of cases now are judged on technicalities. And the reason is coming from ZEC as the lady called Shigumba, that one. She's very arrogant, and I don't know how you are challenging her, and she seems not to say anything, but she knows where we are going. So I'm worried with that. Thank you.
Lions Den, it's Justice Chigumba. Let's be respectful of people in their positions. Thank you.
Thank you. It is political judgment because somebody who was aligned to ZANU-PF appeared before the Constitutional Court, then the Supreme Court, in 2013. He did not have the position that I hold. He did not have the social qualifications that I hold in this country. He was given audience by the Constitutional Court. He was given relief, and that person was Jealous Mawarire. Years later, I appeared before the same Constitutional Court. I begged them first. I applied to them whether I should appear directly to them. They invite me to appear before them because they rule that my case is strong. And they rule that I have locus standi. And on the day of the hearing, they don't ask us to address what we had come prepared to address them on. They start revising them on my locus standi. They start talking about technicalities when it is written in our constitution that as far as possible, constitutional matters must not be decided on technicalities. They must be decided on substance. So what was the difference between Jealous Mawarire and myself? Jealous Mawarire was pro-ZANU-PF. I am MPC. That is the only difference. And my case was actually more deserving than that of Mawarire. So when the Constitutional Court does that, it has taken a political stance. The reasoning is not sensible at law, and therefore that's why I said it is a political judgment. Now, you asked me a very pertinent question. You are going to be appearing before the same judiciary. What is your level of confidence that they will reason in a non-political manner? My answer to that, my brother, is that we should never get tired of knocking. As long as there is injustice in this country, as long as our people are treated unfairness in this country, we must always keep on knocking. We must never give up. We cannot surrender to unfairness. We cannot surrender to manipulation of the judiciary. We shall appear before that judiciary, and if I get my second chance, I shall appear before that constitutional court and knock it within them that that they should give us justice. But we are going to win before them or not, I don't know. But there is no other option. We must keep on knocking. We must keep on fighting. We must never give up. And I, the MDC, are not going to give up until the judiciary hears us, until the judiciary lives to its responsibility. It will keep on seeing us in those courtrooms.
Thank you, Senator. I have one or two questions which I'll ask later on, so we can have speakers put their questions to you, because I'm aware of the amount of time we have with you. We go to finals. After finals, we go to Mupendero, and then we come to Mimi, and then Mfudzi, and then Smarters. Thank you. Basho, keep bringing you up, but you're dropping. Please go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you, Sister Shumi. I'm back again, Senator. You spoke about you want the invalidity of the delimitation report to be done, and you want it to be redone itself, and you also want the delay in the proclamation. Are there specific issues? Because I've seen what your application says. Are there specific issues that can be dealt with without throwing away the entire delimitation report? If you were to mark that delimitation report, what percentage would you give it? Because this is what we got to know kwa mrewa zvinonzi zviri nani kurembera pane kudona. So zviri nani the delimitation report yatinayo. What would you say to someone who would say to you, let's dry our eyes and get on with it, let's go for elections? I'm done, Senator.
I don't think he can hear you.
Yeah, I don't think you can hear finals, Senator. Yeah.
I didn't hear finals. I didn't hear him.
Sister Shimi, you'd have to reiterate again. Sorry, thanks.
Sorry, Senator. Finals is asking if there is any particular issue that you can point at that delimitation report that you say is flawed, that can be corrected. And the other question was, kwavo kwavanobva kwamurewa vanoti zviri nani kurembera pano kudona. Some people might say, Senator, just dry your eyes, let's go for elections. What do you say about that?
Then the rating, I think the rating question was very important.
Oh, yeah.
If you to give a rating, yes. Go ahead and go back.
All right. Thank you very much. Finals. There are a number of things that are wrong with this delimitation report. Number one, it does not provide, it does not make use of population census. and therefore we are unable to tell how many people are in which area, including kwenyu kwa Mrewa. This is what kune vanhu vangani, and therefore is it necessary, is it imperative that we have concentration there? We are unable to tell that. Then number two, as you know, that the Constitution says that there must be almost equal number of registered voters in each constituency. But in 119 out of 210 constituencies, we have a variance of more than 20%, ranging between 30%, 4%, and the outrageous one is 67%. So it is wrong. It is a delimitation report that is uninformative, therefore a recipe for disaster. Mataura tsume kuti zviri nane kurembera pane kudonha election akwete ini ndofungidzira kuti we must fight for the correct election to be held. Correct election for Zimbabwe is a free and fair election, and a free and fair election predicated on a delimitation report that demarcates our country in a correct manner. And as long as there is a chance to change it, we must try our best to change that, to make sure that the playing field is leveled. But I want to assure you that we are not sitting on our laurels and preparing for the elections. We are preparing for the elections. I'm sure you saw my rally in Nyangano. I think some people tweeted about it over the weekend. And you saw the crowds that were there. And that is inconsistent with a person who is afraid of an election. What is very, very correct is that the MDC is on ascendancy. The MDC is caught up with its political opponent. And what is left for the MDC to do is to overtake them. There are some people who live under the burden of past victories. Yes, we didn't do in a by-election sometime last year, about 1 year ago, and that we took active action. And right now we are within message. That's number one. We are actually fighting on the side of the people in demanding a free and fair election, while other political parties are now so impatient for elections that they've forgotten that we have been fighting for electoral reforms. We have been fighting for electoral justice. So the MDC finds itself now solely on the side of the people, alone on the side of the people. Other political parties have been consumed by impatience and the jealousy of the MDC. They will not acknowledge that the MDC is doing something correct. They will not acknowledge that the MDC is right. They will never acknowledge that Mr. Mwonzora is correct. But what is clear is that we are correct. They are wrong. You can hire proxies to defeat a cause by a fellow opposition member or opposition party, and you cannot side with the ruling party. You can side with ZEC on something that is patently unfair and claim at the same time to be a representative of the people. I totally disagree.
Oh, Senator, if the other question was, can you rate the delimitation report, let's suppose, out of 10? That was his final question.
Out of 10, I would give it 3 of 10. It's a complete failure. Well, it was correct in certain aspects, yes. In some of the constituencies, they were within the variance that is accepted. but it is a total failure. It is a total disaster. Doesn't deserve anybody's respect. That report, it was bad done.
Thank you, Senator. Who was next? Mimi? And then who was it? Mfudzi or Smartest first? I don't remember, guys.
Oh, that on Pendero first.
It
Oh,
was
Mpendero.
Mpendero, then me. Okay.
Okay, go on then, Mopendero, and then Mimi, and then it's Mfudzi, Smartest, then we come to you, Mof Padari. Go ahead.
Thank you. Senator, can you hear me? Senator, can you hear me?
Seems like Senator cannot hear
Yeah.
Mpengor. Can you hear Mpengor, Senator?
Senator Mwonzora, can you hear me?
Shall we come back to you?
Can you move over, please?
Shall we come back to you? Can you hear Mpendero, nice Senator? No, he can't. We'll come back to you, Mpendero. Stay where you are. We go to Mfud. Mimi?
Hi, Shumi. Thank you. Thank
Hi.
you, Brad. Thank you, Tangesai. Senator, are you there?
Yes, I am, Mimi.
Oh,
I can see you and I can hear you.
thank you, Simbotsi. Political outcome.
Senator, please shut your mic. Thank you. Go ahead, Mimi.
Thank you, Shumi. Senator Vandi Provoca, pa line ravari kuripita is one of his bases of concluding it's a political outcome. Mataura Senator zvakanaka kuti constitutional challenge yakaitwa 2013 icho ichokwadi icho chine umbowo, asi umbowo hwekuti jealous ZANU PF kana kuti aligned to ZANU PF, ipapo ndokumbirawo kuti mumbodzaka napo, because ndakatarisa iyo ya2013 inomurecognize as an applicant who is a citizen domiciled in Zimbabwe and regards Zimbabwe as his only permanent home and is a registered voter in Zaka East, but ariwo a member of an NGO yainzi Center for Election Democracy in Southern Africa, iri based in Harare. Unless muri kuti Center for Election Democracy in Southern Africa chinhu chezanu, because case yake yaitonge yakasaita vamugabe vaive mutungamiriri webato reZANU PF, or rather amai kuti mutungamiriri kana kuti first secretary at the time, koita vatsvangirai vaive mutungamiriri weMDC, koita vaattorney general nevamwe Professor Muzvinafundo Welshman Nuwe naMuzvinafundo Professor Arthur Mutambara. Saka ini kandakatarisa ipapo ndinoona ari mugari wemuZimbabwe, just like you also cite yourself, ari kufaila achiti kodzero dzangu secitizen ava vari kudyidzana ava havachadi zvekugadzirisa nyika zviri pamutemo. Saka ndoda kunzwisisa kuti why ari kunge asaitwa semunhu weZANU PF. Hatizi taakupingirisha here miono nemifungo? Pane evidence here yekuti ZANU PF iye ega nemuromo wake anotaura kuti haana mbobvira aita memba yeZANU PF? Saka anonyeba here kana kuti pana pamuri kuona zvisiri izvo? Because I think it is quite critical, because you cite it as an example of where the constitution has upheld the provision of law, but you are citing that ruling to have come about because Jealous Mawarire was pro ZANU PF, is one word one phrase you used, or was aligned to ZANU PF.
What I can say, Msati Mapindura, ndekuti maybe he was pro Mugabe, but Mugabe does not translate to be ZANU-PF. As you have seen, kuti Chamisa did not translate to be MDC. Akabuda MDC ikasara iripo. Saka ndoda kuti ndinyatsonzwisisa kuti that using that as a political as a conclusion for you to say kuti this judgment yaitwa iri political. Ndatenda hangu Simboti.
Thank you, Mimi. Ngatimboti uri correct kuti Mawarire asi member yeZANU-PF kana kuti akasi member yeZANU-PF. But you pointed the other factors that he pointed. That he is a Zimbabwean citizen, which I am. He is a registered voter somewhere in Zaka. That I am also a registered voter. He represents an organization. I also represent an organization. He was ruled to have the right to approach the courts. I was ruled not to have the right to approach the courts. So and what is the difference between me and him? The difference between me and him is that I am MDC. I am opposition. And assuming that you are right, which I respectfully believe you are not, that he had nothing to do with ZANU-PF. I have something to do with MDC, and that is the only distinguishing factor that we have here. And he was given relief. I have not given relief. He was entertained. I have not been entertained. By the way, jealousy did not even have to apply for direct access. I was subjected to two processes: application for direct access. I was granted the leave to appear before the courts, and they told me, come and convince us that your case is correct. And I arrived to do that. They did not even want to hear about me. They did not want to hear anything from me regarding the case that I had come for. And it was very unfair. The judges of the Supreme, the judges of the Constitutional Court know that I know that it was a political judgment.
Senator,
the second thing is, you are not correct. Jealous Mawarire was not ZANU-PF. He was actually subcontracted by Jonathan Moyo, the company, and I know it. And by the way, you may or may not know that Jealous Mawarire is a member of the G40 of
but
ZANU-PF.
Senator,
And that he is association. Well, mandibvunza kuudza mumapolitical parties tinozivana.
So
Hold on,
Mimi,
hold on. Let the senator finish, then you can rebut.
On the factual note, Mimi, Jealous Mawarire was and is ZANU-PF. And belonged to one of the factions of ZANU-PF. I know it because we did negotiate with them in 2018 after I had been sent by Advocate to represent the MDC in the discussions that we had with a faction of ZANU-PF that had been in a coup. And one of the people I talked to from the other side was Jealous Mawarire. He had interaction together while he was representing that faction of ZANU-PF. It's something that is objectively verifiable. You may not know about it, but I do know about it because I did discuss with him. I did exchange argument with him regarding what we were supposed to do.
Senator, thank you very much. But where I have a problem with those assertions is Jealous Mawarire was, like I said, he may have been pro Mugabe, but he wasn't a member of ZANU-PF, and he himself says it. So it's you. And then the other bit,
He was a card.
yes.
He was a card-carrying member of ZANU-PF. I know
Okay,
it.
I stand corrected. And then the other bit, yekuti murukuti akauya ari faction party yanga iri party imwewo yakatozvimiririra time yamuri kutaura yakaitika yaive nanava mutinhiri namai mujuru vanga vabuda. That is when he became a national spokesperson of a newly formed political party. Saka and chinonzi G40 muchiti a member of a G40 chinhu chakabuda as a labeling. Zvakafanana nemunhu woti chinonzi triple C hakuna, triple C EMDCT. Ndo zvakafanana nezvamuri kutaura, asi ndatenda hangu nemhindiro, but muri kuedza kuzvisimbisisa. Muono wangu ndichienda in closing ndewekuti Jealous aisa application to uphold the constitution kuti an election process iite go forward. Zvino ndiri kuona mutongo uri kuti imi mauya muchida kustopa constitutional process yekuti election iite, saka zvitori nemutsauko kuti mukuda kuti election isaitike, uyu aitoda kuti election iitike, saka zvitori nemutsauko. So for you to say kuti it's merely political, I think panoda kuongororwa futi further, rather than kuti murambe makadzimikira ipapo, kuti the interest of the other citizens, ma-registered voters ava vamwe vakatobva south kana kuuk kuti rega ndinovhota zvisati ndinoregister kuvhota zvisati zvabvagwa, vakatokwira ndege vari kutodisadvantagwawo. I appreciate pane due process inoonekwa kunzi haina kuitika nedelimitation, and ndinobvumirana nemi zvakafanana necensus, but mutsauko uri significant uripo chaizvo pakuti uyu aida kutoti udyidzana hwemapato huri kutadzisa kuti election iitike akahudimbura nekuenda kuconstitution court. Imi mamutoda kudimbura election yacho, ndo maonero angu, but as usual, thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. Jealous akanga achirepresenta Grace Mugabe na Robert Mugabe, and he was not alone when he negotiated with us, and I was leading those negotiations on behalf of the MDC. It is objectively verifiable. I get along with him. I talk to him quite a lot. He has so much respect for me. I have respect for him. And he is not a stranger to me. He was ZANU-PF, and he was representing the deposed leader of ZANU-PF. Regarding application yedu yatoda kuzama kuita mimi isusu se-MDC tiri kuramba ani free and fair election. Kana pakagadzirwa ma-conditions free and fair election, nasi chaiye tinoenda ku-election mangwana, no problem. That is why you see we did not put a timeline isusu yekuti musaita my elections for such a period. No, we said the mono proclaim my election mapiwa the correct delimitation report. Zvekuti dai vari vamwe vanhu they would have just attended to it then there. Tikadai tichitongoenda kuma election zvagadzirwa ufunge zvako. But they chose to stick by what was unfree and unfair. Ndivo vari kutokonzera ma-delays acho. Because right now, do you know, there was another argument yakaitwa nevamwe yekuti let's go to 2008, sorry, boundaries. And the one I think it was Zek which was saying that should the court find the delimitation report is invalid, let's go to 2008 boundaries. Unfortunately for them, they failed to realize that proposition, it was actually calling for postponement of elections. Because what that meant is that if the court had ruled on the 8th of May that that we go back to 2008, President Mnangagwa was then supposed to proclaim again, to make a proclamation that we are now using 2008 boundaries. He was duty bound to give 6 months notice again, meaning that the election was going to be held somewhere we were going to have those elections somewhere in November or December. So it was going to cause a postponement again. So it is unfair to then say it is the MDC that was a postponement. No, ZANU-PF wanted a postponement because the effect of going to 2008 would entail a postponement of the election. Triple C wanted election postponed by 1 month. We wanted the president to proclaim election after receiving the correct report. And yet it is the MDC that is being accused of wanting to postpone an election. All the three parties, what they were saying had the effect of postponing the election.
Thank you, Senator. I'm conscious of the time. Where are we at with the time?
Sorry, host. Can I just ask my question? Then maybe
you
can.
You will. Hold on. I'm just doing housekeeping.
Okay.
Senator, I'm conscious of the time.
Yes.
What